You know, the village, the suburb I live in just enacted a utility tax. I mean, it's not funny, okay? Now, I'm going to explain to you what they're taxing us on. And I want to say, though, that what I don't understand is they is us, okay? All right, I want you to think about what I'm going to tell you now. Think about what they're taxing us on, okay? And think seriously about this. Let's say your hair catches on fire. I mean, it's not funny, but let's say your hair catches on fire and there's nobody in the room with you to spit on your head to put the fire out. Okay, so now you're thinking, okay, or you don't really think too much about it, but you better hightail it over to the kitchen sink and stick your head under the faucet, you know, get some water on your head. And it's not too cool walking around with your head on fire. Anyway, but before you reach for the nozzle, as you're reaching for the faucet, the spigot, you're thinking to yourself, hey, wait a second. They just enacted a utility tax in this village. And when I put that water on, I'm going to have to pay tax on that water. So you're pondering this while your head's on fire, okay? So now, unless you want to walk around with a big chunk of charcoal on your shoulders, you better stick your head under that faucet real quick, okay? I mean, it's not funny, I mean, but, you know, just thinking about some fool walking around with his head on fire. Okay, let's say, oh, here's another one now. Let's say somebody, man or woman, escapes from the home for the criminally insane. And this maniac is beating down your door trying to bust into your house, okay? Now the first thing you think of yourself is, I better call the police. So you run over to the phone, and just before you start dialing the number, you know, calling the police, you say to yourself, hey, wait a second. If I make that telephone call, there's a utility tax, telephone tax. I'm going to have to pay tax on the telephone call. Okay, so now you're pondering this issue. It's, you know, you're kind of thinking about it. Now you come to the conclusion that you don't want to be the dead guy. So you better make the telephone call. Good thinking for your Einsteins out there. Okay, let's see. See where I'm coming from with these taxes. Think about what they're taxing us on. You don't want to be the dead guy, so you got to pay taxes. You don't want your head to be on fire, you got to pay taxes. Okay, here's another one. Let's say it's dark, it's nighttime, and you have to go make a wee-wee. So you get out, let's say you're in bed, you get out of bed, hopefully. You get out of your bed and you make it into the waste room. I call it the waste room, you might call it bathroom, restroom, you know. You say potato, I say potato, whatever, you know. Okay, so now you make it into the waste room, and just before you do what you have to do, you reach for the light to put the light on, okay? Because if you don't put the light on, okay, you could end up making, you know, let's talk about me, I could end up making wee-wee on me-me. And I don't want to do that, and I don't think you do either. So now you're pondering it, so what do? Well, okay, what I do? I put the light on because, like I say, I don't want to make wee-wee on me-me. That's not a good idea. You don't either, you know, so pay the tax, bite the bullet, put the light on. Okay. Let's say, here's another one. Let's say it's cold outside. You know, Chicago gets very cold. And you could get below zero, wind chills, freezing, things like that. So unless you want to freeze to death, which I don't think any of you nuts really want to do, you're going to put a little heat on. Yep, you guessed it. You put the heat on natural gas, you pay tax on natural gas. You don't want your family to come visit you and find an ice cube laying on the floor. It's not funny, but you know, what can I tell you? It's just norm talk, you know. You know what tickles me sometimes, you know, kind of bizarre things. Okay. Here's another one. Here's a double tax, okay? Listen how this one. This is about a double tax. And I want to explain it to you and be as delicate as I can, but there's really no way you can be delicate about this. At least I can't. I'm not a real silver-tongued, smooth talker when it comes to these things. So let's say, and what I'm getting at, they're going to tax us on normal hygiene functions. Okay, figure this one out. Let's say you go to the grocery store and you buy yourself a roll of TP. You all know what TP is, you know. Unless you're using leaves or something like that, which I hope you're not. Okay, so you buy yourself a roll of TP. Okay, now when you have to use that TP for what you use it for, and you know what you use TP for, okay, you use it, okay, and then you put it into the bowl, okay. See, I'm trying to be delicate about this. And then the next thing we do, or you should do, anyway, I don't know if you nuts are doing it, but you should do it. You reach for the handle and flush, okay? Now, before you do the flushing, you think to yourself, hey, listen, wait a second, okay? You guessed it. You're saying, well, Norm, what did we guess? Okay, I'm going to tell you what you guessed, even if you don't want to hear it, I'm telling you anyway. When you press that handle, water and utility tax, water, we got to pay a tax to get that stuff out of our house. So, unless you want to walk around with a giant stink about you, you're going to use the TP like we do, and you're going to flush it, you know, things like that. So then you nuts are thinking to yourself, well, maybe I'm just going to not pay that tax. Don't do that. Pay the tax. Do your friends a favor. You don't want to walk around with this stink about you.